Welcome to episode number 3 of the Blitz Take. I am here with All Bengals uh, writer Mike, and he'll be talking about what his thoughts are on the upcoming season for the Cincinnati Bengals and a lot more in depth. So welcome.
Hi, yeah, thanks for having me.
So my first question is, what are your thoughts going into training camp and watching the newest prospects from this past year's draft?
For the guys the Bengals drafted, I think Daxton Hill, their first round pick, is very versatile. And it's gonna be interesting to see how they use him, especially because they keep getting more news. Jesse Bates could sit out. Maybe he plays. Who knows? If he plays, I think they get to ease him into his role a little bit because he didn't do a ton of safety stuff in college, a little bit more of a nickel. But if he doesn't play, then he has to take over for Bates a little bit, and that's going to more throw him right into the fire. Who knows how he does? I mean, he could succeed. He could, take some time to get used to it, but he looked like a good prospect to me. Cam Taylor-Britt was a second round pick. I liked him. He'll be in a training camp battle to start at corner with Eli Apple. I think the coaching staff likes Eli Apple more than most people, but I wouldn't be shocked if he's starting week 1, but I would say it's more likely he could take over during the season, maybe after an injury or something. Then after that, it's really rotational pieces. They got a defensive tackle in Zachary Carter, probably going to play a few snaps every game, but he's not going to start most likely. And then they got an offensive lineman. There's a chance he starts, but that's mostly because left guard is a big question mark. I don't think he starts. Probably be one of the first ones off the bench. Then after that, it's more special teams depth stuff. Dyson Anderson, safety, but he's probably not going to play with all those safeties in front of him and everybody after that. But overall, I like the draft, and I think they added some quality pieces.
What are your thoughts on the schedule for the season?
Yeah, I mean, the Bengals for the first time since 2015 are going to have to play a number 1 schedule. So they have to play the Bills, which they were going to anyway because they're playing the AFC East this year, but then they have to play the Chiefs and they have to play the Titans. Instead of playing last year, they got to play the 4th place schedule. So they got to play the Jets, although they lost that game. They got to play the Jaguars, and they got to play, well, the entire AFC West, but they would have only had to play, I can't remember who finished last for them that year. May have been the Chargers. But yeah, now they have to play the tougher opponents. And with that extra game, they have to play the Cowboys, whereas a team like, I think Baltimore only has to play Washington, which is a big difference trying to play against the Cowboys than it is playing against the Commanders.
What do you think? What are your thoughts on matching up against Dallas?
Against Dallas?
Yeah.
I think that'll be interesting, right? 2 very good teams. Bengals were in the Super Bowl. Dallas was one of the best teams in the NFC. Randy Gregory, we'll see if that's much of a loss. I think he went to the Broncos. And defense would still be good, though. They still have Micah Parsons. They've got Trevon Diggs, who's whatever he gives up, he can make up for with his interceptions. And then their offense, I think their offense will probably be worse than it was last year. I don't know how you improve when Michael Gallup's coming off the injury and Amari Cooper leaves, but I don't think it'll be bad. I think it's still a good offense. A lot of it probably comes down to how Tyler Smith and Terrence Steele play on their offensive line this year, and whether a guy like James Washington can step up and be the 2nd round pick that I believe he was a 2nd round pick that he was drafted to be your 3rd round pick, whatever he was. If he could play up to what his draft status from Pittsburgh, then their offense could be above average while still having a good defense. And the Bengals will probably match up pretty well. I think it'll be exciting to see Jamar Chase against Trevon Diggs, 2 very exciting players going at it. We'll see if I can't think of their second corner right now, but see if he can keep up with T. Higgins or if they need help over there. I don't know. I think it'd be interesting. If it has to be, I think home team wins. They're both really good, and that's a far distance to travel for both of them. So I would give the edge to the home team, but I wouldn't be surprised however that game goes. I think it's one of the more exciting ones on the schedule.
What were your thoughts on this past year's NFL draft?
In general,
Yeah.
yeah. The quarterbacks, I think, are the big one.
Mhm.
One quarterback goes in the first round, and then another one doesn't go till round 3. It's been a long time since there hasn't been like 3 quarterbacks taken in the first round, even when they're not even that good. Like Tim Tebow's
Mhm.
going in the first round, and those type of guys. Just like, oh, we could work with that, but I don't know whether it was them wising up to like, no, that hasn't worked, like the Johnny Manziel's and Tim Tebow's, or if it's them
Mhm.
thinking this low of the quarterback prospects. So that's what's interesting. It was a very defense heavy draft to me. And then, like almost every year, it was a very good wide receiver draft. It feels like every year there's just 7 wide receivers who look awesome. And I don't know if that's something why the Packers are willing to trade Devontae Adams, because they know they can get not a Devontae Adams in the draft, but they can get, so I don't know, 80-75% of what he is in the draft, because there's always wide receivers in the draft.
What do you see the Bengals doing in next year's draft with the positions that are in need for them?
It's going to come down a lot to, I think this is Jackson Carman's prove it year. I believe he's got the best shot to start at left guard. If that doesn't work out and the Bengals are picking late, like they should, then I could definitely see guard going. They're a very value team, so they needed cornerback 2 more than safety this year, but they drafted the safety. So a little bit of grain of salt. I have no idea what they really do. Tight end would be an interesting pick. I think there's a few tight ends in this class. I haven't watched anybody, but hearing people talk about the guy from Notre Dame supposed to be really good. He could be a late first. So they could go guard, they could go tight end, they could go defense again. I could
Mhm.
see them drafting a pass rusher, or maybe a corner. If Cam Taylor-Britt doesn't show enough in the season and Eli Apple's gone, then they need a corner. So there's a few ways they could go. I wouldn't be surprised. I think the one that wouldn't shock me, but would be surprising to everybody, is if they took a wide receiver in the late first, because I think they would be forward thinking about Boyd's contract is coming up soon, and T. Higgins, if he really wants paid and they can't do it, then this would make it easier to let him go by having somebody there to replace him. So I wouldn't be shocked if they draft a wide receiver. I don't think they do, but that's the one where you're looking at them thinking, okay, they'll go guard, pass rusher, corner, something like that, and then they go wide receiver, and it wouldn't shock me. It would be surprising, but wouldn't shock me.
Mhm. Uh, do you see the Bengals making the playoffs this year?
Yeah, I mean, it would be a real disappointing year if they made the Super Bowl last year and then they didn't make the playoffs this year. It's happened a lot. The Rams, that happened too. But it doesn't happen every year or anything like that. So I would be surprised if they don't make the playoffs. I think it would take some injuries, but it is a very good division. I mean, the Ravens, they are favored over the Bengals to win the division right now. And then the Browns, that probably all comes down to the suspension of Deshaun Watson. And the Steelers will never be bad as long as Mike Tomlin's head coach, in my opinion. If he can get them to win 8 games with Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges, then I think he can manage to win 8 or 9 games with Kenny Pickett and Mitchell Trubisky.
What are your thoughts on the Pittsburgh Steelers not having Big Ben and having Pickett as their quarterback?
I think it's the end of an era. The thing is, it really feels like they didn't have the Big Ben last year that they've always
Mhm.
had. He wasn't a very good quarterback. I mean, just point blank, it really felt like he should have retired at the
Mhm.
end of 2 seasons ago. But I don't think he wanted to go out in such a dramatic, such an overwhelming loss to the Cleveland Browns. I think he
Mhm.
wanted to go out. Losing to the Chiefs is fine. Losing to a Super Bowl contender is fine, but getting beat by the rival that you kind of beat up your whole career, probably didn't want to go out like that. But then it ended up his arm looked shot. He wasn't moving well. He hasn't moved well in a few years, but he still had the arm to get things done. And then the offensive line was terrible too. So I think that Pickett and Trubisky should be able to give at least comparable play to what Big Ben did last year. if not better, because I really don't think it was a high bar to cross what he did. Like it just looked like when Peyton Manning came back and he won a Super Bowl because of the defense, but he would go in, he threw more interceptions than touchdowns Manning did that year in 2015. I mean, he was swapping starts with Brock Osweiler. That's what it felt like to me. It was like, Manning, you should have retired last year. Although I guess he won the Super Bowl, so there's a reason not to. But when I was watching Ben, I was like, oh man, I think it's gone. Whatever you had left.
What is a typical day like for you as a writer for the Bengals?
This is really a side job. I have a main job that a normal 9 to 5. So I do that. Right now, nothing crazy. Just in my free time, sometimes I'll do some stuff, but I haven't written anything in a couple months. Told my boss, like, that was a long season. I'm going to take a couple months off. I'm going to get back into it soon. But during the season, it looks a lot like, I mean, I'm still a fan of the team too. So I watch the team on Sunday, and then I got to get something written for Monday morning. So usually that night or early Monday morning, I'm writing. And then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are usually very busy days. I'm either doing podcasts, I'm writing, I'm watching the game over again, or, I make my own videos and clips and stuff for people. So I create content, usually have a big article by Wednesday that is something I noticed from the game. Monday is more just like a quick, like what I saw live, and then watching it over, I have more nuanced type understanding of what might have happened. So usually I try to push it all out by Wednesday. I can still do podcasts on Thursday. I like to keep Friday and Saturday open so that my fiance doesn't hate me.
And my last question is, what is your record prediction for the Bengals?
Oh, it's tough. The schedule's tougher. I think I'll just go. There's 17 games now. I have to remember that. I'll say they feel like an 11-win team, and I'm just going to give them the game bump from because you have to pick them either be 11-6 or 12-5 if you think they're an 11-5 team. So I'll say 12-5. I think it's a good team. I don't think they'll be overwhelming like 14-0 type, but I think it's a good team. They play a tough schedule. We'll see if they can manage 12-5 from it. But I would say they're going to finish somewhere around there, whether that's 11-6, 12-5, could be 10-7 with some bad luck, or 13-4 with some good luck. That's how I see it.
It should be interesting. And training camp is around the corner, and I'm looking forward to, like, once you get writing again, I'm looking forward to reading your pieces, even though I'm an Eagles fan. But thank you so much for taking the time to come on, and I'll definitely have you back on to recap some games this upcoming season. And thank you again.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I had a good time.
Same. Thanks.